All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone coming to this very exciting webinar. Uh, as many of you know, one of NCJW's San Antonio's biggest initiatives this year is getting out the vote, and we are so fortunate to be partnering with the League of Women Voters and you are at the kickoff event here on January 20th for a series that we will be doing throughout the year. So I am very, very pleased to welcome Jill Torbert, and soon Alene Lindley will be joining us from League of Women Voters. I'll tell you a little bit about these two fine ladies. Jill has practiced law in San Antonio for over 30 years. She retired to do what she loved, which is to work in the community to make a difference. And boy, has she. She joined the league and its board 6 years ago. She became president of the league 7 months ago. And I consider myself very lucky to be able to hang out and do these voting things with her. Alene is a retired educator and has been involved with League of Women Voters San Antonio since 2021 when she moved here. She serves as Vice President of Community Outreach for League of Women Voters. So, before we launch into this, Jill, welcome and thank you for this and all you do. Would you like to tell us a little bit about there's a judicial candidate forum coming up pretty soon?
Yes, so thank you so much, Rhonda, for that lovely introduction. And I am equally pleased to be here today and to also be partnering with NCJW on this forum and for things that we will be doing in the future. And of course, we already have volunteers with the League that are in this fine organization that have been helping us out for years. So this is not a new partnership, but a strengthening of the partnership that's already been here. Yes, we are holding a judicial meet and greet on February 5th. That's a Thursday evening. It will be from 5:30 to 8, excuse me, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Laurel Heights United Methodist Church. That is at 227 West Woodlawn. And we will be putting that up on our website soon. It'll also be on social media. So people will be able to get that information.
And I'll make sure that I include the flyer on the follow-up message to all the attendees on this, and then they'll have the flyer. One thing I did forget to say is we, throughout this webinar, you're welcome to submit your questions. There's a Q&A box in the interface of Zoom. You can use that or the chat. I'll be monitoring both, and then we can answer your questions either as they come in or probably wait till the end and tackle them all at once. So sorry about that.
Okay. You want to go ahead and advance the slide, please?
There you go.
We'll jump into the meat. So I know a lot of you volunteer for the League already, and so you know what we do and how we do it. But I just wanted to make sure that those of you who maybe haven't volunteered know what the League is about. So our mission is to encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government. We work to increase understanding of major policy issues, and we influence public policy through education and advocacy. And we do this year round. So we don't just wait to 6 weeks before the election, but we are out in the community all the time, year round. Next slide. We are proudly nonpartisan. We do not support or endorse candidates or political parties. However, we do advocate on certain issues such as voting rights. And our advocacy is always based on research, study, and then consensus from our membership. So it's not like I can just decide that I think the League should take a stand on a particular issue and go out and advocate for it. That's not how it's done within the league. It's really through membership, studying an issue, and then voting to take certain positions on the issue, then advocate on those issues. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, just very briefly, we're going to talk about how women in Texas actually started voting before the 19th Amendment was ratified. Then we'll talk about what are primary elections, why they are so incredibly important, what are midterm elections, how to get informed about the candidates that you're going to see on the ballot, and how do we make an impact working together. Next slide. So first of all, I always love to talk about a little bit of history because I think it is so important for women to know about women who made a difference and had a huge impact on our lives. So these two women are really credited with the reason why in Texas, women first were allowed to vote in the primaries. So you see the picture of Mary Eleanor Breckinridge. She is, yes, in fact, the sister of George Breckinridge, who is the namesake of Breckinridge Park here in San Antonio. They were brothers and sisters, and the house that they lived in for a long time still stands on the campus of Incarnate Word. She was the first woman to register to vote in Bexar County, and she was a huge suffragist. She, along with Minnie Fisher Cunningham, were presidents of the Texas Suffrage Association. That's not the correct name of it. It changed names, and so I'm just going to use sort of a generic title for it. They were presidents of the organization in the 1910s. So you see from the date of their births that they were actually, there was 45 years difference in age. But Mary Eleanor Breckinridge was president of the association about 1915, and then Minnie Fisher Cunningham followed her soon after. They are responsible for organizing all the suffragists here in Texas and really creating suffrage organizations in cities and towns and rural Texas in order to get women excited and interested in suffrage. In 1918, still on that slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. In 1918, women suffragists were getting tired of the fact that they really weren't making any progress on full suffrage. And so Minnie Fisher Cunningham saw an opportunity when Paul Ferguson was impeached. William Hobby became governor. He had been lieutenant governor, and he assumed the office of governor, but he was going to have to run. And so Minnie Fisher Cunningham approached him and said that if he would put primary suffrage on the agenda for the special legislative session that was going to happen, she would make sure that the women who got the right to vote voted him in as governor. And so with that deal done, he placed it on the legislative agenda. It passed the House and Senate of Texas, and women were able to vote in the primaries. Interestingly enough, that bill passed, and there was only 17 days between the passage of that bill being effective and the election. In 17 days, 386,000 women were registered to vote. Isn't that amazing? You know, this is before the day of internet. Not every woman had a car. I mean, you think about how incredible that is, and that just shows how dear the idea of being able to vote was to women. The other thing that ties in so beautifully with this webinar is that it was so important for women to vote in the primary because Texas at that point, as well as all of the South, was heavily Democratic. So if you were able to vote in the Democratic primary, you were effectively electing the next governor of the state or next House of Representative because of the way the primaries, the effect of primaries. So with that, I think that's a great foundation for what we are now going to talk about. So next slide. So what are primary elections? As I was thinking about this, I thought, it's so strange to be talking about one election as being a primary election. So I decided to look up the definition, and by golly, it's exactly what it should be. The definition of primary is that it is chief, importance, and it's earliest in time or order. And that's exactly what a primary election is. They are chief important. They really, really are, because of the fact that so many of our districts in Texas are predominantly one party or the other. And then, of course, the primaries are the earliest election of the cycle of midterms elections. And so it is in the primary elections where the political parties select their candidates for the general election in November. Next slide. So just to make sure we sort of all understand, so during the primary election, the Democratic Party is going to determine their candidate. The Republican Party will determine their candidate. There may be third-party candidates, such as the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. Sometimes they have candidates on the ballot. They choose their candidates through conventions or some other process. And then there may also be independent candidates that simply file to run for office. And that's how we get the candidates who will be on the November election. Next slide. So why are these primary elections so important? Well, first of all, because of years of gerrymandering by both parties, often the races are actually decided in the primaries. Now, in Bexar County, we've sort of got a dual system, if you will. So on the statewide offices, many times those are decided by the Republicans because they have the most votes in Texas. But in Bexar County, a lot of the elections are decided in the Democratic primaries because Bexar County is, at this point, heavily Democratic. The other reason why primaries are so important is that few people vote. If you look at that pie chart on the right part of the slide, you will see what a tiny percentage of the population actually goes out and votes. In the last election, the last midterm election, 15% or fewer of Bexar County voters participated. So that means that if you vote in the primary, your voice is louder than if more people voted. Also, because in a primary, they are likely to be the candidate that ultimately wins, you are really selecting the candidate that will be our next county judge or senator or judge on a trial bench. And so, again, that is very important. You don't need to wait to the November election to be making huge decisions that affect us on every level of our lives. Next slide. So the primaries happen every 2 years. They happen in the midterm elections and then again for the presidential election. And the turnout rate is not all that different. So you see here on this slide that in midterm elections, historically, the turnout has been about 15%. And then during presidential primaries, it goes up to a whopping 20%. So both of these are pitifully low turnout for elections that are so very important. Next slide. To bring this issue home just a bit more, this slide shows that because of gerrymandering in Texas that has happened by both Republicans and Democrats for decades, in 2024, about 94% of the Texas seats were basically decided before the general election even happened. So again, just bringing home the point that primaries are so very, very important. Next slide. Sort of just a little primer on how often we have primary elections. So in March of even years, that is when the primary occurs for presidential candidates and a slew of other governmental officials. And then 2 years later, in March of the next even year, we would be halfway through the president's 4-year term, and again we have a primary. So it's just sort of reminding people that these events, primary elections, come up every 2 years. Okay, midterm elections. So midterm is exactly what it means. It says that halfway between a president's 4-year term, we have midterm elections. In Congress, that means that every 2 years, all House of Representatives are up for elections. They hold office for 2-year terms. They all are elected at the same time. And based on the 2020 census, most House of Representative districts contain approximately 761,000 households, or that's how many people they represent. In Texas, we have a whopping 38 U.S. representatives. And that's based, like in every other state, that is simply based on population. I did not know that until I started preparing for this webinar, how many House of Representatives we had. So that's an amazing figure. Now, on the Senate side, we have 2 senators like every other state. So 2 senators from each state. That's how we come up with 100 senators. And they are elected on a rotating or staggered 6-year terms. So senators sit in office, or their term is 6 years long, and 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years. So it happens that this year we have 1 senator who is up for re-election, and that is John Cornyn. Next slide. So in addition to having on your ballot the U.S. representative from your district and also a senator's position, there are other statewide and local races on the ballot. And before I sort of talk about this, I don't want to overwhelm you, and I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, this ballot is so long. How can I possibly get educated about all these people? So I would encourage you to go to elections.bear.org. That is, if you don't catch that, you can just go to the site is the Bexar County Elections Department. And on there, they already have posted the sample ballot for the Democratic midterm primaries and the Republican midterm primaries. And so you can pull that up and look at the various races that you're going to see on your ballot. They do not yet have a sample ballot where you just plug in your address and pull up the exact races. So hopefully, I heard that they would have that up sometime this week. But anyway, there are tools to help you start narrowing down which races you need to focus on. And so it's not quite as overwhelming as it seems by this list. But coming up in February, when you go to the polls, these are the offices that will be on the ballot. So you can see we have 4-year terms, 6-year terms, and then again, state representatives and state senators will also be on the ballot. And there will also be a few Court of Appeal judges on the ballot. Next slide. And then locally, we have a number of races that will be on the ballot. There are a lot of district court judges and a lot of county court judges that are on the ballot. There will be a couple probate judges and justice of the peace. You probably are aware that there's a county judge race, and you may have a commissioner on your ballot. The district clerk and county clerk are also on the ballot, and there will be a district attorney race and constables. On all of these are on your ballot. Next slide. So I think it's important when we try to figure out who we want to vote for is to be mindful of what these positions, what power these candidates will have if they are elected. The U.S. Senate, as we know, confirms the Supreme Court nominees, and they confirm all federal judges. Of course, we aren't anticipating that any of the Supreme Court judges will resign or that they will have to step down from office for any reason. But, we have had unexpected deaths in the past, and things just do come up in people's lives. So I think we need to be mindful of the power that a senator has to confirm Supreme Court nominees. And the same situation is with the federal judges. Those posts come open all the time. And we are seeing, a lot in the news about the power of federal judges and how many cases are working their way through that deal directly with what the current administration is doing. And those cases will be continuing to work their way through the courts, and whoever is sitting on the bench is making very important decisions. And the Senate also appoints people to the executive branch, so they have the power of confirmation, which is a very, very important power. In addition to those powers, senators and representatives have the power of the purse, the power to tax. They make decisions about how our taxes are going to be spent, whether it's going to be spent highly on defense spending or immigration and education. They also spend money or don't spend money on programs for developing countries, the military, consumer protection, and energy, and just about every other way that the federal government supports people, Americans. And so we really need to concentrate on where we think funding should be placed. Similarly, state legislators have the power of the purse and power to make decisions about funding. They are heavily involved in education. As we know, but they are also involved in making decisions about water, data centers, energy, and healthcare. They also, in the last few years, have really taken up the issues of city and county control, whether the state can control what city and counties government can do. They also are getting very involved in First Amendment and Second Amendment rights, such as banning of books, what can happen on school campuses, including secondary schools and colleges. And of course, they make decisions about whether you can carry a gun or where and how you can carry a gun. And again, taxation. So all of those are issues that these elected officials are making on a monthly basis, really. As soon as legislatures are in session, these issues are paramount. Next slide. So what is the League doing to help make those decisions a little bit easier? I hope that all of y'all are aware of the League's Voters Guide. It will be in the libraries probably around February 5th. And we have asked certain questions that I think will help you make decisions about which candidate is best according to what your interests are and what your values are. So for senators, we have a question about the economy, about immigration, about the balance of power, and healthcare. And there will be two other questions as well. We have asked both senators and House of Representatives 6 questions. And then the House of Representatives, we've asked what are the top 3 issues you would like to address if elected. Again, we ask a balance of power question. What do you see as Congress's role in maintaining the checks and balances among the 3 branches of government? We've asked a question about immigration and about energy. Next slide. On a more local level, at least at the state level, we have again asked the senators what their 3 issues are of importance. Energy question, a question about how they will ensure that no child goes hungry in the state of Texas. And that question is particularly important with the issues on a federal level where food stamps and various support programs have been cut or threatened to cut because of federal shutdown. And then finally, as I mentioned before, education is so very much in the forefront of Texas legislators, and we are asking them the question of what policies would you support to ensure that all Texas students have access to quality education. To state representatives, we are asking them about education, water, hunger, and voting rights as well. So those are the kinds of questions that we have posed to them to try and help you as a voter determine which candidate best fits your values and what you think is important. Next slide. Okay, I believe Alene is here and she is going to take over from here. Alene?
Good morning, good afternoon, I guess, since it's 12:30. So I'm glad to have made it in time for this part. Apologize for not being here when the introductions were made. Yeah, I get to do the ending piece of this. First of all, the dates of the election, the primaries are March the 3rd is election day, with early voting starting in February 17th. If you are interested in voting by mail, you must apply again for 2026, and the deadline for that is February 20th. And they have to have received it by that date, not postmarked. And of course, we also have some concerns about the postmarking changes that have been made. So when you're mailing in your ballot, if you're voting by mail, please pay attention. And we have some recommendations on making sure that you get that postmarked so that it is counted. One is to either go to uh, the post office and ask for a hand postmark. Make sure you mail it early, or mail it registered. So there are several things that we would suggest for that, given those postmark changes. Okay, next slide. But the primaries are not over necessarily on March the 3rd. There will be some that will go into runoffs. And so the runoffs are going to be toward the end of May. May 26th is that election day, with a shorter period of early voting, May 18th to the 22nd. Again, you can vote by mail for those as well. If you haven't applied for voting by mail for all elections in 2026, that deadline is May 16th. And then there are some other local elections on May 2nd. So just be aware that if your school district is having an election, there may be a time for you to go and vote in those elections as well. So we always have an election to talk about. Next slide. So the league wants every voter to have the knowledge and confidence to vote. And so we are going to try to give you any information that we think is important, but we also want to know what you think is important. We have general election information on our league website, which is lwvsa.org. You can find out who represents you on that site, as well as on the Bexar County election site. Given that there's been redistricting for the U.S. House of Representatives, you may want to double check that you're in the same House district as you have been in the past, just to make sure that you know which race you are going to be voting in. That's an important thing to consider. And of course, follow us on social media. We send out regular information about what's happening in the upcoming election. Jill mentioned the voter's guide. Again, February 5th is our target date for that. And then when that is delivered, our Vote 411 will also be up and running. You may want to look for forums and debates that are being hosted around the city. We know of a few that are coming up. We are hosting a judicial meet and greet on February the 5th at the Laurel Heights United Methodist Church, starting at 6:30 p.m. There is and I don't know too many details about this, but I think this Saturday there is a district attorney forum or debate that may be happening on the 24th of January. So just be looking for those kinds of events. Each political party may host different forums or different debates, but there are a lot of that are being scheduled now. And I think we'll be seeing more and more as it gets closer to the election. Again, paying attention to newspapers, paying attention to TPR, Google searches, those are all good ways to find out information about the candidates. You do want to look for nonpartisan information so that you know that there is no spin on what they're saying. The voter's guide is going to be sharing information about Democrats running against Democrats. And so there's going to be a subtler message to discern between the candidates, I think, when you're voting in a primary. Next slide. We've got resources, of course, our bookmarks, which give you the dates and times. They're a great reminder with the resources listed there. Our voter's guide we've already mentioned. We also have this primary elections brochure, which gives you information about what you need to know about the primary elections, how they work, what happens if you don't vote in the March 3rd election, but you want to vote in the runoff. Can you do that? Yes, you can. So it gives you answers to lots of those questions about how the primary elections operate, why they're important, and actually increasingly important, I would argue, to how the final decisions about our people that run our country and our state and our local areas are decided. Next slide. So we want you to decide to make an impact. We know that you can make an impact on a personal level. You can do that by making voting a habit and voting in every election. But you might want to expand that out to voting with your to talk to others about the election, voting with a friend or family member, going to the polls and making a date to do that, to make it a more collaborative and community event. Or you may want to have an impact on a community level, getting organized with larger events within your own community or with an organization that's already established. Next slide. Here are some suggestions for making an impact personally is to sign up for election reminders so you don't miss the opportunity. You find out when Vote 411 is active. You find out when early voting starts. You find out, well, tomorrow's your last day to vote. Share information from the league, from the elections department and other organizations so that you can share that information with others. Inform yourself about the candidates and vote. That's probably the most important thing there is to be informed and to actually follow through with the action of voting. Next slide. Here's where you would sign up for election reminders. Again, we send out 3 emails. One is that we got Vote 411 up and running. Our voters guides are out and about. You can start doing your research with those resources. The second one is about election, early voting has started. And again, the last one is about the last day to vote, which is election day. That's your deadline is election day. So we just try to make sure that everybody knows, and that's a great way to expand your influence. Next slide. By including your friends and families by forwarding those voting reminders to your friends and family. You can also influence friends and family by helping them apply for a mail-in ballot, helping somebody get to the polls, just sharing the information that you learn about the election and sharing it with families and friends. Next slide. In a broader sense, you may want to become a volunteer deputy registrar for voter registration events. You can assist in helping organize forums, host candidate meet and greets, have your own lunch and learn or P&O and policy to share with a broader community and to establish a community habit of talking about issues and talking about voting and making sure that others are engaged in the whole process. Next slide. We absolutely want everybody to make sure that they are registered to vote and that they're registered in time to vote. This QR code will take you to the site that allows you to check your registration. It is an important thing to do before every election, before the registration deadline, just to make sure that nothing has happened to your registration and that you are good to go. In many cases, we find that they may have moved and not remember to change their voter registration, and their voter registration goes on suspense. And there may be other issues. So please make sure that you do double check your voter registration before each election. And the next slide. We would love for you to join our organization and help us in influencing a community. So become a member and join us in those actions, or become a supporter just to help us meet our mission of informing voters so that we have an informed constituency. Next. So thank you so much for participating in our democracy by voting. We hope that the information that we've shared with you today has given you a foundation for understanding the primaries and why they're important. I think that earlier today I shared that I worked with an English coordinator one time. She told me everything's an argument. This has been our argument, that the primaries are an important part of our process and more people need to be involved in that to make them most effective. So we appreciate your attention today.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you. We have questions. Before we get started on that, Lisa Epstein of JCRC wanted me to remind you guys, everybody listening, that on February 1st is a kickoff candidate forum as well. The details, what I'm going to do is to everyone who participated, I'm going to go ahead and send this announcement to everybody. Again, it's February 1st, and I'll get y'all the exact um, time at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. So I will send out information on this and again, the one on February 5th, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of these just to get the word out, to get everybody voting and doing their thing in such an important year. Um, we do have a few questions. One, can a party restrict who votes in their primary? I don't believe that's possible. Thank goodness. So,
As a matter of fact, in Texas, we have open primaries. And so that means that anybody can vote in the primaries. But there is a such thing as closed primaries, in which parties do restrict who can access their primaries. There is currently a lawsuit against in the state that is asking for closed primaries, but as of yet, there's been no change in our process.
excellent. How do you become a deputy registrar?
You go through Bexar County elections, and there's information there on the training. The training allows you to register voters and take their applications and return them to the county. There's restrictions about who can do that, as you might suspect. You don't want people collecting voters' registrations and then not sending them to the county, not sending them in and trashing them. So they have regulations. So being a volunteer deputy registrar, you understand those rules, you know the process. When you sign off on the application, so that it's certified that you were the one that did it, and so there are some things in place to make sure that the voter registrations get to the county. So it's a way of monitoring that to make sure people who register do get registered. But it's an easy process. The training is online, by Zoom or in person. So you have some options on taking the training, and it's for a 2-year term. So every 2 years you have to re-up it.
Excellent. Um, for younger people, since the primaries are so important, um, how do you get young people involved? What could we do? Is there anything we can do that you can think of are best practices for getting the young folks involved, and what makes them energized?
I will jump in here and and Alene, you'll have some other comments. But one of the things is the best way to get young people involved is to get young people to get other young people involved. And so if you have a way to reach out to a group of young people who are interested in politics and engaging them in getting their peers engaged, from what I understand, that is really highly effective. Getting peers to sort of mirror their behavior is an excellent way of getting young people involved. I will say there are a number of organizations here in San Antonio that are working diligently at that. One of them is Youth Do Vote. They go out to high schools and are doing high school registration. Move Texas is an organization that started here in San Antonio at UT Texas. I think it's either 5 or 10 years old. They are actively going out to college campuses and recruiting college campuses and recruiting and getting students at college campuses engaged. And there's also Jolt, Jolt, and they're doing similar work as Move Texas, and there may be others. We do have a youth initiative, and we also go out to colleges and high school, colleges and universities, and we're also going out to vocational and training schools and recruiting people there. And we have some other initiatives regarding youth as well. We have a youth contest, and we are actively, sort of as we speak, working on getting some younger people to help us with social media, because we understand that social media is the way to talk with young people. And so we are going to try to get some young people to help us with social media so that our message is heard.
Excellent. I
Alene,
will.
do you want, yeah, Alene, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that a big part of getting young people to vote is increasing their confidence in voting. Making sure they understand that there are resources to help them. It's not just, okay, now you're registered, go vote. But here are the legal resources. Here's a voter's guide. Go through and mark it up and it helps them make decisions. One thing our youth initiative does do also is they take out a voting machine and they take the youth through the process of actually voting, on silly stuff, but they go through the process so that when they get to the actual poll place, they're not stymied by what do I do here? They have some understanding of what their next step is. And so those are things that we try, but building that confidence and them understanding that there are resources to help them, I think is a very important part of it.
I think what we'll do is that's incredible information. I think you all can expect an email or something from us that kind of takes all those things, because I know we all have young people in our lives and we do whatever it takes. So that's excellent. That's all great information. Another question, if a voter has signed up on a vote by mail ballot and then changes their mind, can they vote in person, even though they're as a vote by mail
You want me to
registered?
take this one, Jill?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, they can. They do have to, when they go into the polling place, they do have to take their mail ballot because they've already received it and turn it in so that they don't have the opportunity to vote
Oh,
twice.
got it.
But they can do that, yes.
That makes sense. Um, if any of us have decided that, oh man, it'd be great to do a pop-up of some sort with an organization or at their work or at a school or whatever, is that something that we can organize with you guys pretty quickly? I mean, do y'all do pop-ups?
Yeah,
I
so
don't know if
Alene,
we would call them. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so Alene, I had talked with Rhonda about this. Let me just interject and then you can follow up. So the league has done some pop-up things. We haven't really organized anything this year, but in the past we did pop-ups at parks. And one of our biggest success was at Hardburger Park. And on Saturday mornings during early voting. We would usually go there on Saturday mornings and stand there for an hour or two with our bookmarks, just reminding people that an election was happening. And it was always very successful because you're getting people right at the moment in which they can go vote. And for some of these smaller elections, we know that people just don't know that the election is going on. So we would love to have to do that again. And really, it's all just a matter of resources and volunteers. Alene, do you want to speak to that as
I
well?
think that it'd be very easy. We just need to be able to have the volunteers to go out and we can share resources and say here, oh, here's a package, here's a set of resources for your pop-up, and share this information and remind people that so that we wouldn't have to be involved except for sharing the resources, or we can and we can solicit our volunteers through our system and populate it that way. So I think there's lots of opportunity there.
Okay. And then before we get too much further, I wanted to bring up those flyers for the JCRC event on
Yes, great.
February 1st, and then the one for February 5th. And again, I'll be sending these out to all our attendees and anybody who couldn't make it. And then you will be receiving a lot of emails throughout the entire year on our joint programs with these fine people from League of Women Voters. And with that, I think we've gone through all the questions. We are almost at the top of the hour.
Rhonda, I just want to interject one other thing, although that will probably turn into two or three other things. But the first thing is that if anyone is interested in volunteering with the league, they do not, we would love for everybody to join it and be a member, but not all volunteers are members. And I just wanted to throw that out. If someone is interested in getting a invitation to volunteer or just to learn where all we're going, they can reach out to community outreach at lwvsa.org. Alene, you want to put that in the chat? And that will actually go to Alene, and she can get you on to, I'll call it our mailing list, but actually it's our volunteer list in which we send out we call it SUG, Sign Up Genius. We use that as our volunteer recruitment and sign up software. And it lists everything that we have going on, really generally about 3 months out, this month, next month, and probably into March. And so there's always a description of what the event is. And there's always somebody who is experienced, and sort of on a 6-month basis or so, we offer training. So, Alene, you may want to follow up with something there as well.
Well, I think that if you go to our website and you look for our volunteer opportunities, if you click, it'll have a calendar of all the different events. And even if you're not on our list and you haven't communicated with me through the community outreach email, you can sign up on that list and be a volunteer for any of our events. So that's what I'm putting in the chat also.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we would welcome that. As Jill said, we have an experienced volunteer as the lead on all of our events, and so you would not be there without guidance.
Great. Oh, we did have an extra question come in. If you haven't, I haven't received my new voter registration card. Do I need the new one to vote?
Okay, you haven't received them because they haven't mailed them yet. There's been a delay in that, and Bear County Elections did send out a press release saying that they would be coming soon. You do not need them to vote. It's not bad to have them just in case there's a question about your voter registration, but it is not a requirement to have that, but you do have to have the picture ID.
And I would just interject there that, again, if you don't have your card and haven't received it, again, it's very important to check your registration so that when you go to the polls, you are confident that you are on the list. And if there is any question, you just emphatically say that you know that you were on the list because you checked, a week ago or whenever. But it is very, very important to confidently say that you are on the rolls.
Excellent. Well, ladies, I think that is it. We have almost reached the top of the hour. I can't thank you enough. This has been so informative and just fascinating. So everybody who has attended, you will be hearing from us soon. And with that, have a wonderful Tuesday afternoon.
Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Take care.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Bye.